Hey everybody, this one is called Attorneys Number 6, the Bar Treaty of 1947. Um, Thanks for all these bar members. These bar member scum are all agents of the UN, and we're going to talk about it right here. First of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I meant a lawyer. No, I meant a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I have provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything, and I'm open to any ideas. There's 4 types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? If you can see through the illusion, then you are the solution. If the people do not know their basic rights and freedoms, how on earth can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? Never forget, the men who started this country were marijuana growing, whiskey drinking, tax evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the cops. And that is 100% true. George Washington was a hemp farmer. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex. I don't trust the military industrial complex. I don't trust the mainstream media. I don't trust the bankster criminal cabal that owns the government, owns the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex, owns the military industrial complex, and owns the mainstream media. If you call me a conspiracy theorist, I don't trust you. Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. Well said, Thomas Jefferson. Whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. That's true. An informed citizenry is at the heart of a dynamic democracy. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. If, once the people become inattentive to the public affairs, you and I and Congress and assemblies, judges and governors shall all become wolves. It seems to be the law of our general nature, in spite of individual exceptions. That's true. We're seeing that today, folks. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Ours may become the first civilization destroyed not by the power of our enemies, but by the ignorance of our teachers and the dangerous nonsense they are teaching our children. In 1933, Hitler appointed Hermann Goering Minister of the Interior. His first orders were to defund and eliminate the police departments so they could not interfere with the brown shirts whose mission it was to riot, burn, beat up, and kill citizens in an effort to sway the elections. Well, now they don't worry about swaying the elections. They have, what is it called? Dominion to rig the elections. The American Bar Association was organized on the 21st of August, 1878. Gee, that sounds like what? About 17 years after the southern states walked out of Congress. At Sarasota Springs, New York, its object shall be to advance the science of jurisprudence, promote the administration of justice and uniformity of legislation and of judicial decision throughout the nation, uphold the honor of the profession of the law, encourage cordial intercourse among the members of the American bar, and to correlate the activities of the bar associations of the respective states on a representative basis in the interest of the legal profession and of the public throughout the United States. And that's the ABA Constitution, Article 1. There is a report of the Special Committee for Peace and Law through the United Nations relative to the Bar Treaty of 1947. All bar members, that means, and I'm going to be showing you some of this stuff, that means that all bar members are agents of the UN. fall under the United Nations and international law. They're here to enforce the military dictatorship, folks. Governors like Abbott, a bar member, issuing their edicts under their military dictatorship to ensure their property, you, is safe. Recall that son of a blank. Executive orders are not law. Executive orders are color of law. Executive orders are equivalent to regulations. Regulations are for government property. Color means an appearance, a semblance, a simulacrum as distinguished from that which is real, a prima facie or apparent right. Prima facie being a first look. Hence, a deceptive appearance, a plausible assumed exterior concealing a lack of reality, a disguise or a pretext. Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. Colorable, that which is in appearance only and not in reality what it purports to be. Hence, counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth. It's a fraud. It's a lie. They are Satanists. Color of law means the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoers clothed with authority of state is action taken under color of law. They're Satanists. It's a lie. They're Satanists. The international law rule, adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction, federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only the statutory but the common law of a state. State and federal venues discussed. Civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction are federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws, and a cause arising under such laws may be brought in or removed to federal district court under the U.S. Code. That's taken from Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the States, a report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the States, Part 2, a text of the Law of Legislative Jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President, June 1957. This is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. To exercise of the U.S. Constitution, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square. So think about it. This one says that all Texas laws are actually federal laws. This one says that the federal laws are only in the District of Columbia, not exceeding 10 miles square. As made by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States. So that's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. So they're perjuring their oath. Again, it's a lie. These people are Satanists. This is diabolically evil. These people are Satanists. I think they ought to get their necks stretched. I'd really like to see some of these SOBs get their necks stretched. National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states are not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress could give the jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power nationally, that means military dictatorship, folks, covers those citizens even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company. Okay, that's U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. And so that's basically, if you think about it, that's talking about the Commerce Clause in the Constitution. And so if you're in commerce, then they can regulate you, but otherwise they got nothing to say to you. They're perjuring their oath of office because, remember, the U.S. Constitution under Article 6 is the supreme law of the land, and I don't care what these whores in the Supreme Court say. The forced loans of 1862 and 1863 in the form of legal tender notes were vital forces in the struggle for national supremacy. They formed a part of the public debt of the United States. Again, if you're using their commercial paper, then you're in commerce, okay? Especially if they can presume that you're in commerce. If you haven't put out a disclaimer there somewhere, like I put in mine, that I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the fake money. Article 6. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuant thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. So I don't care what these bill priest whores in the courts are saying. The enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be screwed to deny or disparage any others retained by the people. That's the 9th Amendment, and this is probably one of the best amendments they have, and few people even use it, because that brings in your common law rights. All your rights are at common law are unlimited. Every citizen and freeman is endowed with certain rights and privileges to enjoy which no written law or statute is required. These are fundamental or natural rights recognized among all free people. As a general rule, men have the natural right to do anything which their inclinations may suggest, if it be not evil in itself and no way impairs the rights of others. Right now, we're in the middle of a communist takeover, and so this is what's the date today? The 15th of January, and Trump is dealing with it. But these communists, they're certainly doing everything they can. They're liars. They're thieves. Think about it. Under communism, there's no property rights. Well, the Bible says that thou shalt not steal. God says that we do have the right to property. So these communists are Satanists. It's about time we woke up to what's going on here, folks. Labor Code. A place, district, or country occupied by an enemy in consequence of the stands in consequence of the occupation under the martial law of the invading or occupying army, whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to the inhabitants has been issued or not. Martial law is the immediate and direct effect and consequence of occupation or conquest. The presence of a hostile army proclaims its martial law. Now you have to understand that martial law is international law. Okay, so they want to assault you with their international law, so then they can go ahead and throw the Constitution out, and they can do whatever they want. That's what, because all you people are such clueless, or I shouldn't say you people are probably educated, but there's so many brain dead idiots out there that are so clueless about what's going on. And martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the Commander-in-Chief or by special mention in a treaty of peace concluding the war. That's the only way that martial law ends. And we all know that Texas was occupied during the Civil War. We all know that, like, Arizona was occupied during the war with Mexico, and in Arizona in particular, there was a treaty of peace called the Treaty of Hidalgo, but it doesn't say anything about ending the martial law, and there have been no special proclamations by the Commander-in-Chief, who happens to be the President of the United States. So therefore, the martial law continues to this day. That's why you see these police, which are peace officers, they're supposed to be peace officers, wearing military uniforms, walking around with military rank insignia, and all the rest of it. Okay? And so that's why the martial law continues. If you're going to be in international law, you can be in international law and you can be in common law. Common law is not international law. And they're perjuring their oath when they try and put you into international law. Martial law affects chiefly the police and the collection of public revenue and taxes. Whether imposed by the expelled government or by the invader, it refers mainly to the support and efficiency of the army, its safety, and the safety of its operations. Why do you think they're trying to force you to wear that face diaper? Because they want you to be safe. And if they want you to be safe, it's because you're their property. There's three kinds of martial law. Full martial law, a declaration of martial law is issued, troops put on the streets, used only during wartime, used on a foreign country when actually invaded by a foreign power to put down an armed rebellion. There's martial law proper, law of the armed forces. When a captain tells a private what to do, it's enforced by court-martial. And there's martial law rule. And that's the law of necessity and emergency, allows the domestic use of martial law powers used during peace times, can continue for centuries during a military occupation. That's taken from U.S. Supreme Court, Ex parte Milligan, and it's cited in Diet versus Turner in the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court. The original 13th Amendment. If any citizen of the United States shall accept, receive, or retain any title of nobility or honor, okay, or shall, without the consent of Congress, accept or retain any present, pension, office, emolument of any kind whatever from any emperor, king, prince, or foreign power, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States, shall be incapable of holding any office of profit, of trust or profit under them, or either of them. So under them is the federal government, either of them is the state governments. That's how they do it. And so then, this is the one that they facilitated the disappearance, okay? Any shall accept, claim, receive any title of nobility or honor. Well, all of these bar members have a title of nobility, and it's an honor from a foreign power because it comes from the UN, from the City of London, from the Roman cult is where it's coming from. An office of trust is one that requires an oath of office, and an office of profit is one which is paid. The War of 1812 was initiated by the Crown to eliminate the true Article 13 Amendment. One of the major engagements was when the British burned the Capitol and the National Archives. The National Archives would have been where the ratification records would have been kept. All bar members have a title of nobility. All bar members have a special privilege or honor from a foreign power. All bar members have an emolument from a foreign power. Congress concerted citizenship into the opposite of what the founders intended, to enslave everybody. Congress, by the way, is 70% bar members. Every legislature in the country is 70% to 90% bar members. They go and populate their courts with these bar member scum, and these bar members are literally everywhere. Now, that's not to say that all bar members are bad. Some of them are actually pretty good. I kind of like, my opinion of Rudy Giuliani has changed completely since I've seen what he's been doing lately, and so I really like what he's doing. And but it looks like they are trying to disbar him too, which is not surprising. That's what these bar member scum do. And Sidney Powell, I like her too. There's some bar members that I like, but I can probably count them on both of my hands. There is not very many. Most of them are scum. Whoops, let's finish. Congress gave governments permission to screen for low intelligence for their code enforcers. Congress granted plausible deniability to their order followers so they can rape, pillage, and murder as much as they like and then claim good faith immunity. Congress mandated fluoride in the drinking water to dumb down the brain-dead idiots for their concentration camps. This is all coming from Congress. Congress created the Roman cult Satanic Trust as a mechanism to enslave everybody, collateralize their so-called debt, and sell everybody into slavery. Congress mandated everybody register their births to compel everybody into their slavery system. Congress created administrative law based on fraudulent, fictitious contracts as a mechanism of slavery, and you volunteered. Congress created all sorts of prisons to facilitate their military dictatorship and their slavery agenda. That's what Joe Biden is going to come out. You think it was bad under Obama? It's going to get worse under Biden, under that pig. Congress gave the president the power to make war without congressional approval as a mechanism of slavery all over the planet. Congress mandating their so-called real ID for their slaves to fabricate evidence of their slaves for their bar members' presumptions. Congress has given pharmaceutical companies immunity for their poisonous vaccines. Congress has authorized naked short selling on Wall Street. Some corporations claim they can refuse service if you do not wear a face mask. All these corporations are subject to regulations. They all have a government franchise. All corporations are property of the government. When you incorporate into the government. Look it up. Article 4, Section 2 says Congress shall have power. Congress shall have power to make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property of the United States. If they're subject to regulations, they're property of the United States. Martial law is the public law of necessity. Necessity calls it force. Necessity justifies its exercise. Necessity measures the extent and degree to which it may be employed. That necessity is no formal, artificial, legalistic concept, but an actual factual one. It is the necessity of taking action to safeguard the state against insurrection, riot, disorder, or public calamity. What constitutes necessity is a question of fact in each case. And that's taken from a practical manual of martial law by Frederick B. Weiner in 1940. It is cited in Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition, page 3093. Necessity is the plea of every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. The action of Congress in the passage of the first Legal Tender Act was placed distinctly upon the existing imperative need of government, and the Legal Tender Clause was urged as and adopted as a war measure. Martial law. That's U.S. Supreme Court, 1884. No state shall coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold or silver coin, a tender in the payments of debt. There is no lawful money in general circulation. It has to be in general circulation. Money means a medium of exchange. This is what these bar member scum have done. This is Texas Business and Commerce Code, which falls under the United Nations, under the UNIDROIT statute by the United Nations. And so this is all found in international law. So if you're using the fake money, then you're in international law. Money means a medium of exchange currently authorized or adopted by a domestic or foreign government. The term includes a monetary unit of account established by an intergovernmental organization or by agreement between two or more countries. Party under the Texas Business Commerce Code. Person engaged in a transaction. Gee, that sounds like commerce. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation, take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen where private corporate commercial paper and securities is concerned. For purposes of suits, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. And that's Clearfield Trust Company versus United States. International law, there's no such thing as a sovereign in international law. That's why I don't know why these people want to file a UCC1 and claim their sovereignty by doing it, because there's no such thing as a sovereign in international law. What you're essentially saying is, I want to do commerce. So they're saying, okay, sure, no problem, let's do it. They're a bunch of thieves. Governments lose their immunity and descend to the level of private corporations when involved in commercial activity, enforcing negotiable instruments as in fines, penalties, assessments, bails, taxes. The remedy lies in the hands of the state and its municipalities seeking remedy. And that's Rio Grande versus Dark. Congress, claiming its martial law power to declare war, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions, imposed martial law in the United States and never discontinued it. The result was an extension of military and municipal jurisdiction of Congress. But where's the evidence of this? Look at the 13th Amendment, the Civil Rights Act, the legal tender laws, the 14th Amendment, etc., etc., etc. And that's taken from a book by called The Non-Ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. The 14th Amendment is an extension of the national military powers presently used in a municipal character and enforced by municipal laws stretch far beyond their original limitations and enforced by Article 1 tribunals. Well, Article 1, that's the executive branch. They're not supposed to be outside 10 miles square under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. That's taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. This was going on during the War of Independence, too. This is taken from the Causes and Necessities for Taking Up Arms, 1775. Statutes have been passed extending the course of admiralty and vice-admiralty far beyond their ancient limits, for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law and instead thereof to publish and order the use of the exercise of the law martial. and for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter, we saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. That's military dictatorship, folks. Time to wake up. The refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators was probably the prime cause of the revolution. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. The United States shall guarantee to every state of this union a republican form of government. Do you have a military dictatorship or do you have a republican form of government? It's one or the other. It's not both. But in considering the question before us, it must be borne in mind there is no law of nations standing between the people of the United States and their government. So a republic is not the law of nations. A republican form of government is not the law of nations. Martial law is the law of nations, is international law. Law of nations and international law are inconvertible phrases. The people of the United States have delegated to it certain powers, certain enumerated powers, and forbidden it to exercise others. The purpose of a republican form of government is to shield we the people from international law. That's what these bar member scum have done. Two national governments exist. That's what these bar member scum have done. One to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. And that's in Downs versus Bidwell in 1901. Well, that's what these bar member scum have done. If it's outside of the Constitution, that means it's unconstitutional. In the Articles of Confederation, it says the style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. That's in Article 1. And yet, if you look on your passport, the only place I have seen the United States of America is on Federal Reserve notes. That's the only place I've seen it. Everywhere else, you see United States of America, like in your passport, on Silver Eagles, even on Air Force One. It's got United States of America. Excuse me. A passport is a written document given to a person or persons by a commander of belligerent forces, authorizing him or them to travel unmolested within the district occupied by his troops. Passports are issued by the State Department or a similar office in other countries to diplomatic agents and others entering or traveling in foreign countries which are the same general character as those issued during war. The latter should, when practicable, have a photograph of the bearer attached. And that's taken from the Rules of Land Warfare, 1914 edition, Passports, Safe Conduct, Safeguards, and Cartels. Chapter 7, Section 4, Article 276, page 100. The only place I've seen the United States is on the Federal Reserve notes. And in this case, it's silver certificates. At common law, only gold and silver were legal tender. If you want common law, it requires honest measures. We got to stretch the necks of these bar member scum and eliminate this plague that we have in our country. There is a distinction between a debt discharged and one paid. When discharged, the debt exists, though divested of its character as a legal obligation during the operation of the discharge. That's what these bar member scum have done. Discharge falls under the law of nations, under international law. They lay awake at night with this stuff. That's what these bar member scum have done. If you're using Federal Reserve notes, you're not paying anything. That's why my Form 1020 works. And if you want to know about the Form 1020, there's a couple videos up. I'd suggest you watch them. All the Form 1020 form does is say, how do you want me to pay it? And they will never tell you. Because they're bar member scum. Copies of these documents can be found on my website and linked under my recent videos. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information shares, a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forms, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the fake money, the military script, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, checks, money orders. Send me an email for particulars. Section 15 of the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, located at 48 Stat 337, says, as used in this act, the term United States means the government of the United States, and the term currency of the United States means currency which is legal tender in the United States and includes United States notes and Federal Reserve notes, which means that Federal Reserve notes are meant for internal use of the government only. Federal Reserve notes are international law. Federal Reserve notes are commercial paper. Federal Reserve notes are a forced loan. Federal Reserve notes are IOUs. All commercial paper falls into two categories. It's a promissory note or it's an IOU. And so a requirement of a promissory note is a promise to pay. Gold certificates and silver certificates were promissory notes. You can never pay a debt with a Federal Reserve note. Other videos. Check out my other videos. Bankster Thieves playlist, Roman Cult playlist, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1 through 7, Do-It-Yourself How Not to Volunteer for the Selective Service in the Draft, Martial Laws Here, Do-It-Yourself No Income Tax, Do-It-Yourself Free Mail, Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Courts, Canada Border Pigs playlist. And all of my videos are on my website, or not all of them, almost all of them are linked on my website. This rule does not interfere with the right of the victorious invader to tax the people or their property, to levy forced loans, to billet soldiers or appropriate property, especially houses, lands, boats, or ships, and churches for temporary and military uses. That's Libra Code Article 37. Cryptocurrency is not a forced loan. Anything can be used as a means of exchange as long as we agree to it. It's called barter. Gold and silver coin is exchanging one thing of value for something else of value. My contact information. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. I've got a Rumble profile, but I've only got one video uploaded there so far. My private groups are, I've got a Yahoo shut their group down, so I've got Free List's private group. It's called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants, and my Google private group is called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. Follow me on Twitter at Engineer Win. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. My library profile, I would suggest you go there and watch my videos. You can watch them all on library. My Patreon is called Sovereignty International, and I certainly appreciate all of my Patreons. And I've also got a MeWe group that they don't let me customize. Congress converted citizenship into which is bar members. Congress converted citizenship into the opposite of what the Founding Fathers intended, for the purpose of enslaving everybody. And this is U.S. Supreme Court, Colgate versus Harvey. And while the 14th Amendment does not create a national citizenship, it has the effect of making that citizenship paramount and dominant instead of derivative and dependent upon state citizenship. So prior to the 14th Amendment, the state citizenship was paramount and dominant, and the U.S. citizenship was derivative and dependent upon state citizenship. After the 14th Amendment, the U.S. citizenship became paramount and dominant. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. Every taxpayer is assessed to a trust having sufficient interest in preventing abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. That's assessed to a trust, folks. And that's a summary of that case, folks. In the D.C. Code, the legal estate to be the necessitake use, Chapter 56, Section 1617 and 31 Stat 1432. And the Roman cult, it all started with the Roman cult, folks. This is taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, Volume 2, under the definition of mort main. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted, not to themselves directly, but to nominal fees to the use of the religious houses. That's the Roman cult, folks. thus distinguishing between the possession and the use and receiving the actual profits while the season of the land remained in the nominal fiancé, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. To be bound in conscience to account to assesticate use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. And it is to these, that's taxes, folks. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. It's all Satanism. These people are satanic. This is all codified now under 15 U.S.C. Section 44. A corporation shall be deemed to include any company, trust, so-called Massachusetts Trust or Association, incorporated or unincorporated, which is organized to carry on business for its own profit or that of its members, and has shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest. And, okay, so that's one definition. And then the second definition is any company, trust, so-called Massachusetts Trust or Association, incorporated or unincorporated, without shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest, which is Sesticate Trust. And all, by the way, it doesn't include partnerships. That's why a partnership is so useful. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or the property belonging to the United States. That's Article 4, Section 2. I mentioned that earlier. That means that your state, whatever state you're in, I can tell you it's called the state of Texas in Texas, is subject to federal regulations and is therefore federal property and federal territory. So if that state of Texas has something to say to you, then you're in commerce. They're assaulting you in their commercial jurisdiction, these Satanist pigs. Banks is international law. Military despotism is international law. Uniform Commercial Code is international law. And all codes, rules, and regulations are international law. All Texas statutes, all statutes in Arizona, that's all international law. Forced loans is probably the single most important thing for a military despotism. This is all brought to you by these bar member scum under the UN, folks. It makes it so the courts can presume that you do not pay a debt. It makes everybody into paupers. Paupers have no rights except what they allow you to have. Gold is the money of kings. Silver is the money of gentlemen. Barter is the money of peasants. Debt is the money of slaves. Congress bar members created the Federal Reserve in the middle of the night. The Federal Reserve was set up under the insurance laws of the United States. Federal Reserve notes are worthless insurance scrip. Anything purchased with worthless insurance scrip is the property of the issuer of the scrip. Taxes are the fee for using the private money system. The single most important requirement for a Republican form of government is lawful money. Lawful money is not Federal Reserve notes. Lawful money is not bank notes. Lawful money is not forced loans. Lawful money is not discharged debts. Lawful money is not international law. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. Therefore, non-resistance to tyrants is obedience to Satan. All you people that are just going along to get along or choosing the less of two evils, okay, you're Satanists. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Engineer Win. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video on YouTube. Don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. This is the front page of my channel. The subscribe button's already clicked. The arrow is pointing at the bell. You got to click the bell and a little pop-up will come up. And you have to subscribe to all of the events. What is called proclaiming martial law is no law at all, but merely for the sake of public safety in circumstances of great emergency, setting aside all law and acting under military power. That's why they have to pass millions of codes, rules, and regulations. And make for common law offenses like murder, okay, they have to pass a code for that. That's why all statutes are edicts under martial law. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore, it's been replaced by statutes. They'd be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore, it's been replaced by martial law. And that's taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellard of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. There's no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden, with penalties for disobedience of its command or crimes. That means they're under martial law. Under Texas law, no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. That means they're under martial law. The legislature may create an offense and in the same enactment provide exceptions to its application. Under a military dictatorship, there is no law, which is why they're required to pass statutes, which are edicts for common law crimes like murder and assault. This creates civil law, which creates democracy. Under the military dictatorship, you have a democracy, and a democracy falls under international law. Negotiable instrument law is a subset of Roman law. Mortgages are Roman law. Roman law is international law. The Bar Treaty of 1947 falls under the United Nations. And there's a maxim of Roman law that says, let he who is willing to be deceived be deceived. A society whose citizens refuse to see and investigate the facts, who refuse to believe that their government and their media will routinely lie to them and fabricate a reality contrary to verifiable facts, is a society that chooses and deserves the police state dictatorship it's going to get. And that's a satanic philosophy, okay? That goes back to the Roman maxim, let he who will be deceived be deceived. That's Roman law. Let he who will be deceived be deceived. That's a Roman law maxim. Thou shalt not curse the deaf, nor put stumbling blocks before the blind. But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, that no man put a stumbling block or occasion to fall in his brother's way. When the rights of the least of us are violated, we are all diminished. Okay, these are all Satanists. This is diabolically evil, and we need to do what we can to put a stop to it, because otherwise we're going to be held accountable. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law, to distinguish it from the law of nature and from international law. This is thanks to all your bar member scum under the Bar Treaty of 1947. Year of the father of the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. But the fearful and the unbelieving and the abominable and the murderers and the whoremongers and the sorcerers, which are the pharmaceutical drug pushers, and the idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. I have exclusive content available on my website and on Patreon. My website has 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. It's $29.99 a year for the videos only. It's $49.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. But I'm not a liar. Well, I meant an attorney. No, I meant a liar. But I can tell you what I would do under certain circumstances, where to find the forms. The only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, and I can't fight all the battles. My attitude is take me out back and blow my brains out, because I don't want to be here anyways. And until they do, I'm going to be the biggest pain in their butt that they can possibly imagine. Some of my exclusive website videos on my website and Patreon content: Arlington Private Information Share, Land Deed Training, Estoppel Certificates Training, Foreclosure Estoppel Certificates Training, Corporate Denial Training, Toll Roads Notice and Demand Training, Invoice Training, Notice of Void Judgment Training, Revocation of Signature Training, Third Party Witness Training, Federal Habeas Corpus Training, Revocation of Voter Registration Training, Criminal Complaint Training. There's about 3 videos on that. I've got a video on lawsuit training, and there'll probably be more, and other training depending on what their requests might be, if it's something that I can do. The Northeast Private Information Share videos are up there. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free, linked on my videos and on my website. All exclusive content will be on my website, and you can buy a subscription there. And my Patreon is Sovereignty International, and I certainly appreciate all my Patreons. They've been telling people for decades that we're in a democracy. Do you think it's an accident? Of course it's not an accident. I'm sick of YouTube and Google censorship. Over the next few months, I've been moving away from YouTube and Google. I've already dumped Chrome for Brave. I'm moving my videos over to Library, and I'm moving them elsewhere too. I'm started uploading them to Rumble, but that's going to take a while. My book is Trump, a True American Patriot or Not. For too long, a small group of people in our nation has reaped the rewards of government at the cost of its citizens. Washington flourished, but the insiders refused to share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but allowed our jobs to leave and our factories to close. Why do you think they hate his guts so bad? That's why, right there. Not anymore. In Trump, a True American Patriot or Not, I reveal the depths of corruption, deceit, manipulation infesting our political system for hundreds of years, regardless of political affiliation. Read the hard evidence that exposes how our elected officials sold Americans into slavery. Understand the Founding Fathers' true intent when they formed our Republican form of government. Discover the influence of the satanic Roman cult in our politicians and our political system. Does Donald Trump want to transfer power back to we the people? In Trump, you'll see the great battle that is upon us. And that is so true. We're in the middle of it right now, and it ain't over. It's not over by a long shot. I hope Trump winds up taking office. Whether he does or doesn't, it's not over by a long shot. I would encourage you to get my book. I just published my book. It's available on Amazon and on my website. Amazon does not provide autographed books. I do provide autographed books from my website. My website goes to PayPal, and if you want to pay by another method, contact me privately. I can accept cryptocurrencies. I can accept Cash App. Contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Do you want to know the origins of the deep state and who's behind it? Do you want to know why it's called the Trump administration? Do you want to know what an administration is? Do you want to know how Trump came to be president? Do you want to know who owns Congress? Congress is owned. Remember, there's two national governments. And in Downs versus Bidwell, they talked about that. And in the Articles of Confederation, it says that the style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. And in 1871, Congress created a corporation for the District of Columbia. And now that corporation went bankrupt in 1933. And it's owned by somebody. Any corporation goes bankrupt, it becomes owned by somebody. Do you want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? Because they're enforcing the martial law. Do you want to know how you became a slave? Do you want to know what the root cause of the War of Independence was? You want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip? Trump did it. Obama did it. Bush did it. Clinton did it. They've been doing it for a long time. In reality, they're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in the way. We all need to be praying for that man. Whereas taxation by the Parliament of Great Britain for the purpose of raising a revenue in His Majesty's colonies, provinces, and plantations in North America has been found by experience to occasion great uneasiness and disorders. Well, no shit, Batman, that from and after the passing of this act, the King and Parliament of Great Britain will not impose any duty, tax, assessment, whatever payable on any of the colonies, provinces, or plantations in North America or the West Indies, except for such duties that may be expedient to impose for the regulation of commerce. And that's George III, Chapter 12, 1778. 2 years after the war, after the Declaration of Independence. So what do you think this is all about? Hello? Is anybody home? Taxes caused the War of Independence. If they can tax you, then you are their slave. You are forced to work for them for nothing. It is becoming more and more difficult to be free. All subjects over which the sovereign power of the state extends are objects of taxation, but those over which it does not extend are exempt from taxation. This proposition may be pronounced as self-evident. It's obvious. The sovereignty of the state extends to everything which exists by its authority or permission. And that's McCullough versus Maryland, 1819, U.S. Supreme Court. A subject is a slave, and taxation is forced to work for nothing. It's slavery, folks. A tax is an impost, a tribute. This is all thanks to these bar member scum. Under the Bar Treaty of 1947 and the UN. A tax is an impost, a tribute imposed on the subject, an excise, a tallage in public law. Taxation signifies a system for raising money for public purposes by compelling the payment by individuals of sums of money called taxes. Some general principles of taxation are said to be the subjects of every state ought to contribute to the support of the government as nearly as possible in proportion to their respective abilities. That is, in proportion to the revenue which they respectively enjoy under the protection of the state. They don't want to kill the goose that lays its golden eggs. In the observation or neglect of this, except nowadays, they want to kill them all. In the observation or neglect of this maxim consists what is called the equality or inequality of taxation. And that's Smith, Wealth of Nations. That's also cited in the Dictionary of English Law, Sweet and Maxwell, London, 1959. There's two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by sword and the other is by debt. When acting to enforce a statute and subsequent amendments to the present date, the judge of municipal court is acting as an administrative officer, not in a judicial capacity. Courts administering and enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, but merely act as an extension, as an agent for the involved agency, but only in a ministerial and not in a discretionary capacity. This is thanks to these bar member scum. It is the accepted rule, thanks to the bar member scum and the Bar Treaty of 1947, and the UN, not only in state courts but in the federal courts as well, that when a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes as a bought and paid for whore. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature, act as mere clerks of the involved agency. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. Think about it, folks. It's all color of law. It's felonies. They are committing felonies. You need to start bringing that up under their 18 U.S.C. Section 242. And when the bar members are talking to each other, like the prosecutor is talking to the judge, gee, that sounds like a conspiracy. Under 18 U.S.C. 241. Where there's no jurisdiction, there's no judge. The proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law from the days of Marshal Sayle. And that's citing 10 Coke 68. That's Lord Coke in the 1500s. That's cited in Bradley versus Fisher, U.S. Supreme Court. Judge wears a military uniform. Judge sits there and plays stupid. If you fail to follow some obscure rule or procedure, they sell you into slavery. Everything they do is a fraud and a nullity. That's why they're Baal priests. They're Satanists. Oh, look at the Baal priests. Look at the Satanists. Excuse me. I guess that probably came along at the right time because I was starting to get worked up. Judge works for the state. Prosecutor works for the state. The pig works for the state. The vast majority of the disputes that the pigs initiate on behalf of their employer are also adjudicated by their employer, where the plaintiff, the judge, the antagonist, the pigs, and the only witness, also the pigs, all represent the same party. And since no corpus delicti, mens rea or acts reus can be produced, doesn't technically qualify to be heard according to its own laws. The state, therefore, is indistinguishable from a criminal cartel. This is all UN. This is all thanks to these bar member scum and their Bar Treaty of 1947 and the United Nations. And do you elect anybody in the UN? Of course not. But in fact and in law, such statutes are intended to be applied to those who are here as residents in the state under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Federal Constitution and the so-called 14th Amendment. U.S. Supreme Court, United States versus United Mine Workers, 1947. The current so-called 14th Amendment, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime. So they just fabricate the crime and assault you with it. And it's color of law, and they just go right ahead and do it. He, the prisoner, has, as a consequence of his crime, not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights, except those which the law and its humanity affords him. He is, for the time being, a slave of the state. Why do you think that the United States has a bigger percentage of population in prisons than any other country on the planet? It's so good for business, for these whores! And we need to put a stop to it. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die. We need to turn the Roman cult into a smoking hole. That's what we need to do. If thou shalt put evil away from among you. Okay, that's a commandment. Deuteronomy 24:7. And if you don't work towards that, if you don't do everything you can to put a stop to this, then you are going to be held accountable. U.S. Constitution, Article 6, Clause 2. This Constitution and the laws of the United States made in pursuance thereof shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the constitutional laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So it doesn't matter what these states say, what the state constitution, none of that matters, because the federal constitution is the supreme law of the land. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. We can have a benevolent dictator or a tyrant dictator. Obama was the textbook tyrant. Pelosi gets up and tells the House, we can't read this bill until after we approve it. And Lindsey Williams. Lindsey Williams is a Christian Southern Baptist preacher that went to the Alaska oil pipeline in the 70s when they were building the Alaska oil pipeline, and he went to preach the gospel to them and got to know the elite up there. They invited him to their meetings, and so over the last 40 years, they've been telling him what they were planning on doing, and he's been making videos and telling people what the elite are telling him, and guaranteed just about everything they told him they were going to do happened. Anyways, when Trump got elected, Lindsey Williams said that the elite told him that God had intervened, and that while Trump is in office, their plans are on hold. Well, if Biden gets into office, their plans are back with a full vengeance, and he's already said it. When the people are the rightful masters of both Congress and we the people are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who would pervert the Constitution. When the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the losers, and that's what's been happening with Trump for the last 4 years, is nothing but slander and lies and slander. These people are Satanists. A racist is someone who wins an argument against a liberal. Tyranny is defined as that which is legal for the government but illegal for the citizenry. A republic is the only form of government which is not eternally at open or secret war with the rights of mankind. Well, they are openly at war against you. It's the time you woke up. Time to wake up, folks. It's not a republic. The republic is almost dead. If Biden gets in, he wants to bring in the communist Chinese. So if it's not dead, it will be. What country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. Absolutely, Thomas Jefferson. The Constitution is not a document for the government to restrain the people. It's an instrument for the people to restrain the government. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to gods. We have governor tyrants, we have Congress tyrants, we have county commissioner tyrants, we have city tyrants, we have county sheriff tyrants, we have judicial tyrants. Today is the unborn child. Tomorrow is likely to be the elderly or those who are incurably ill. Who knows but that a little later it may be anyone who has political or moral views that do not fit into their distorted new order. It's all part of this communism. It's not murder. Jews aren't actually people. It's not murder. Babies aren't actually people. Child sacrifice in 1515 is the same as in 2015 by Planned Parenthood. A nation of sheep will beget a government of wolves. If fascism ever comes to America, it will come in the name of liberalism. America needs God. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. The New World Order will require that you worship the government. What's going on in China right now with the Falun Gong, and they're doing their organ harvesting programs. In other words, if you don't do what we tell you to do, then we'll just harvest your organs, and we won't even give you a painkiller while we do it. Under the New World Order, you either renounce any other god except government, or they will try to kill you. Or just kill you. You'll disappear. Turn into a hamburger or something. In China, they're persecuting Christians, Falun Gong, and anyone that fails to worship the government. It's well known that they're harvesting the organs of the Falun Gong. The greatest tyrannies are always perpetrated in the name of the noblest causes. The strong reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is as the last resort to protect themselves against tyranny and government. It's time to get unplugged, folks. We're in the final stages of a communist takeover, and we need to prepare for anything. This is all thanks to the Bar Treaty of 1947 and these bar member scum in the UN. That's exactly where it's coming. Remote viewers and futurists have said that for years, that there will be a point in time when there's riots in every major city and a great nation will disappear in one day. The Bible says 1 hour. Babylon the Great is fallen. Then there'll be wars between the states. Providence favors the prepared. Wondering why Antifa seems so familiar? Gee, it sounds like the Russians, the communists, and the Antifa. It's all communism. There's no difference between communism and socialism except the means of achieving the ultimate end. Communism proposes to enslave men by force. Socialism is subversion. It's merely the difference between murder and suicide. It is the duty of the patriot to protect his country from its government. So that's it. That's the Bar Treaty of 1947. These bar member scum and the UN. It's all coming from them. We need to do something about it, folks. It's time to wake up. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.